Unless something remarkable happens, the Australian government will make a decision this week that will have ramifications for greenhouse gas emissions and Indigenous heritage for decades to come. It relates to one of the world's biggest liquefied natural gas processing plants up in the Pilbara in northern WA, owned by and operated by Woodside Energy. It's been running since the 1980s and has approval to run until 2030. Woodside wants it to be able to operate until 2070. This is a highly contested decision. Climate campaigners and scientists say that if it was to run till 2070 at full capacity, it could lead to up to 6 billion tonnes of extra emissions going into the atmosphere. But in the end, the decision that's going to be made bizarrely doesn't turn on the climate impact at all. The new Environment Minister, Murray Watt, he's only been in the job since the federal election. He's going to make the decision under what's known as the Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act. That doesn't include climate change when considering whether a development can go ahead or should be refused. He's got to look at the local impact on the environment, and that includes the impact on Indigenous rock art. Now, the rock art in the area is extraordinary, and no one argues about that. There are more than 1 million rock carvings across the region. Some of them are thought to be about 50,000 years old. They include what might be the oldest depiction of a human face. So we're talking extraordinary stuff. There's different views on this. The WA government, which strongly supports extending the life of the plant, has been sitting on a rock art monitoring report since last year. It was released last Friday, just days before Watt was due to make his decision. And it's huge, it's 800 pages of science, but the summary released by the government kind of says nothing to see here. It says some of the rock art has been damaged, but links that to the 1970s and a power plant that operated at the time. It says now things are manageable and that there's no sign of acid rain linked to the processing plant. But since then, some experts have had a chance to go through it in detail. One of them is Benjamin Smith. He's a professor of archaeology and a world rock art expert. He says the science behind the report is good, but the data has been badly misinterpreted in terms of how it's been described publicly. That in reality, if you dig into it and take a clear-eyed look at it, it shows that pollution levels locally are now 4 times higher than they were in the 1970s. And that just makes sense because the processing plant is a much bigger operation than the power plant that ran back then was. He believes the evidence is clear that if what allows the plant to run for decades into the future, that rock art in the region will be lost. So he's saying to Murray Watt, don't rush into a decision here. And if you are going to approve the plant extension, and nearly everyone assumes that that is going to happen, that the conditions that are attached to that approval will be key. Now, there are a number of ways this could be cut up, but Smith suggests 2 conditions in broad terms. One is that the life extension, it doesn't make much sense to allow it beyond 2050, given we should be at net zero emissions by then, both in Australia and in our North Asian trading partners. And secondly, that it's really important that the local processing plant runs on renewable energy and is not powered by a gas plant, which is what leads to quite a lot of the local pollution. And if that happens, he said you could certainly limit the damage to the rock art and justify keeping it going for some time into the future. We don't know at this stage if Watt's paying attention to that, but in a matter of days, his decision's due to land.